All right, let's go to Howard Beach, New York, where Bernie is on the line for Republicans. Hey there, Bernie.
Good morning. First, I appreciate the fact that you're able to keep a straight face. I mean, you're doing a heck of a job, and I don't think I could. To your question about the conflicts, it reflects the personality of this man. A real tragedy for the country. A real tragedy for the country. And even perhaps even more, some of the callers who live in Oz. What are they talking about? It's transparent. This man doesn't belong in this job. Get him out. And I'm a Republican, never voted for a Democrat. Get this man out, please. Thank you.
And our last call this talk with Patty, who's calling in from Warren, Ohio. She's a Democrat. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning. How are you?
Great, thanks. And yourself?
I'm great, and I'm just wanting to comment on the upshake in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's appalling what's happening in the White House. But, you know, we watched from the primaries of a president who attacked every person who ran against him in the most outrageous way. I've been an educator for 40 years. I wouldn't accept one day from a student what President Trump has done. He is absolutely disrespectful. If he was in my room, he'd be in the corner or in the principal's office every day. I can't believe that we've let a man like this set an example for our country, for our children. I think it's outrageous. He keeps saying about his leakers. I would leak on him every day because he's running our country with his absurd behavior. And a friend of mine just got back from 2 countries in Europe. She said people were questioning her everywhere she went when they found out she was from the United States, saying, how could we ever elect a man like this president of the United States? What were we thinking about? She said, I just didn't even know what to answer them. She said, I couldn't believe that other countries were so concerned and following what was going on here. I just think he's a disrespectful person, and I don't know how we can trust him in the White House when he has no moral compass at all.
We were talking earlier about North Korea, and we have a tweet here from someone using the handle North of Boston. He writes, maybe some haven't noticed it, but China and Russia are helping North Korea, not U.S. Trump doesn't have a clue. Let's go back to the phones. Let's hear from Debbie, calling from Flint, Michigan, on the line for Democrats. Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I love Cspan. In regard to the conflicts, I believe they are self-inflicted. And is anyone really surprised that the White House has a fly problem with the stuff that's happening there? Because I don't. He's called us Democrats obstructionists, said we don't have a thought process. You know, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was the day that he entertained the Russians in our Oval Office. That is our White House. Not his White House, our White House. And he entertained the Russians in there without our media, but took in Russian media. And why anyone would think that the 3 meetings, count them people, 3 meetings he had with Putin at the G20 went any differently than what they went in the Oval Office, because I don't. I believe that his time is coming. I believe they're going to perp walk him right out of the White House. And I stay glued to my television set because I certainly don't want to miss that. I thank you for taking my call, sir. Have a good day.
You too. Robert mentioned the collapse of the Senate health care plan, which played out in cinematic drama the other day here on the Hill. In the Washington Post, they write about John McCain, who delivered the fatal blow to the Senate health care plan, as did, for that matter, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. But it picks up here. Meanwhile, Democrats had been running their own full-court press to win over McCain, and not just inside the Senate. According to a Senate Democrat, McCain heard from 2 longtime friends pleading with him to oppose McConnell. That's the Senate Majority Leader, of course. Joseph Lieberman and Joe Biden. The former senator from Connecticut was long one of McCain's best friends, forming the heralded Three Amigos along with Graham. Despite his more conservative leanings on national security, Lieberman remained loyal enough to Democrats that in 2009 and 2010 he supported the Affordable Care Act and relayed that continued support to McCain. Biden, the former vice president, who often clashed in a collegial way with McCain on foreign policy matters, had a more emotional discussion with McCain. The Arizonan's brain cancer is the same diagnosis that Biden's son, Beau, received in 2013. He died 2 years later. Those conversations set in motion the dramatic night in modern Senate history. And then this Washington Post story goes on from there to detail what happened on the Senate floor. But back to our question, we're talking about the staff shakeup in the West Wing and your views on it. Let's go to Umar, who's calling from Jersey City, New Jersey, on the line for Democrats. Good morning, Umar.
Hey, good morning. I would just like to say what Donald Trump needs to do is stand in front of his dresser, remove everything so he can see the mirror, and fire himself, along with his son-in-law, his daughter, because they're not really doing the job. They're not trying to do the job. They lie in their pocket behind all our backs, looking at us like we are fools, and every other country is looking at us like we are fools. And that's what we landing in. We landed in a place of nothing. That's where he put us. They're trying to blame Obama for everything that's going on.
Well, let me ask you this, because the president made very clear that he's not a politician. He's a businessman. He's new to the ways of Washington. And so if he decides to shake up his staff as he figures out how to do things effectively, why shouldn't he be able to do that?
He can shake up his staff. He picked his own staff. So now you can't trust the people you pick. How good is your business? Where's your tax return? Your business is nothing. You're not a billionaire. And I don't make a lot of money, but I know a billionaire don't cry over money. Don't cry over showing his taxes. Like Warren Buffett said, I got billions. I'm on the same investigation like him, but I can show my tax return because he got billions. Donald Trump is a nothing. He's a nobody. He's a bump. And if y'all don't see it, that's on you. We got him as your president. I'm not going to say my president. As your president. He'll never be my president.
Umar talked about the way in which the world is looking at the U.S. Here's an international view from today's Financial Times. Headline is, Trump's week staggers from bad to worse. I believe this was published before Priebus was fired, but in any case it says, following the healthcare collapse, Mr. Trump is turning to what he vows will be history's largest tax cut. But the effort is months behind schedule and now may not be ready for Congress until 2018. How many cuts will be paid for remains unclear following House Speaker Paul Ryan's abandoning of a border-adjusted tax that would have raised $1 trillion over 10 years. Still, Mr. Trump shows no sign of adjusting to Washington. Instead, by siding with New Yorkers like Mr. Scaramucci in the internal brawl, he seems determined to double down on the approach that got him to the White House and to the brink of a failed presidency. This is reporting in the Financial Times, the weekend edition. Let's go to Laredo, Texas, where Doris is on the line for Republicans. Good morning, Doris. Doris, you there? Okay, well, we go to our next call. Let's read this tweet. This is from Michael, who writes, John Kelly should run as far as he can away from real Donald Trump before he tarnishes his reputation. I'll scroll down a bit so you can see it. Okay, let's go to Fran, calling from Jacksonville, Florida, on the line for Democrats. Good morning, Fran.
Good morning. Yes, from what I've heard about General Kelly, I'm really curious as to why he would even tie his fate to Donald Trump. It's clear that Trump is totally irrational, and you don't know who he's going to target from day to day, and he targets the people around him, I guess because they're the closest ones to him. As far as his agenda is concerned, he's only concerned with undoing anything that President Obama implemented, anything. And so I think he's got a list, and he's checking it twice to see if he's missed anything. When he started with reversing that 0.25% tax break the interest for the people who wanted to get mortgages, FHA mortgage. Mm-hmm. That was one of the last things that President Obama did, was give the common person a 0.25% break in the mortgage rate. And the very first thing that Trump did was add that 0.25% back. And that's for Trump people. So he doesn't care who it affects, what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. All he wants to do is undo anything that President Obama did.
Let's go to Joe, calling from Centerport, New York, on the Independent line. Hey, Joe.
Hi. I just want to start with saying that I always, or try to read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times together. So I can see, I bounce them off each other all the time. I try to do that. I don't do it all the time.
It's good practice.
It takes time. In terms of Trump himself, he is too narcissistic and too nepotistic to actually do anything. It makes it obvious. Maybe other administrations have done that in the past, but they always hide it. They always keep it under the table. He doesn't know how to do that. Okay? I do believe in his agenda, but unfortunately he doesn't know how to approach his own agenda. And he's always everything he does is based on self-interest. His own. Right? So whatever he does is whatever, he has all these distractions. What was that thing just about homophobia associated with the Army?
The ban on transgender service members.
Exactly. Correct.
We're talking about that later this hour, or next hour.
Oh, well, I'm just using that because he uses that as a distraction for everything else he's doing. Everything has to do with distractions.
You know, there was some thought that the president might govern like sort of a moderate New York Republican. And President Obama's last press conference, he said one of the things about Donald Trump is that he's practical. He's not an ideologue. Do you think the president would be better served if he did try to govern like a moderate New York Republican?
I don't know how to answer that question. I really don't. I think he would be better if he kept a lower profile. I think he'd be much better served. He's his own worst enemy. He really is. And unfortunately, his agenda is correct, in my opinion. But he can't be trusted to do his own agenda.
That was Joe calling from Centerport, New York. All right, let's go to Howard Beach, New York, where Bernie is on the line for Republicans. Hey there, Bernie.
Good morning. First, I appreciate the fact that you're able to keep a straight face. I mean, you're doing a heck of a job, and I don't think I could. To your question about the conflicts, it reflects the personality of this man. A real tragedy for the country. A real tragedy for the country. And even perhaps even more, some of the callers who live in Oz. What are they talking about? It's transparent. This man doesn't belong in this job. Get him out. And I'm a Republican, never voted for a Democrat. Get this man out, please. Thank you.
And our last call this